Wild West Outlaws radio show. A Western fiction storytelling written by Daniel Belay. Read by Natural Reader. Missouri Kid, Wanted Real Dead. Devil Rock Ridge, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. August 12th, the year of 1881. It was a scorching hot blustery day. The main street of Devil Rock Ridge was nearly empty of its town folks. Most folks were attending church service. Other of the lesser respectable characters were at their dwellings dealing with hangovers from the night before. Suddenly a lone rider appeared heading down Main Street. The rider was dressed in a half-unbuttoned dark gray shirt including a loose long gray coat. His faded red bandana was tied around most of his face to keep the blowing dust from inhaling into his lungs. Also a large dark grimy hat he worn was tilted down upon his shoulder-length blonde hair that covered half of his face. He had a pair of pistols. One revolver was holstered and the other was tucked inside his waist. He was a young man of one physically well built, but not in actual fact being that muscular, perhaps in his early 20s, and he appeared tired, weakened and drawn in pain. His head leaned nearly downward. His body slowly took turns, tilting from one side to the other side upon his horse. It also seems he was wounded as a fair amount of blood saturated his dark gray shirt between his exposed coat, near the right side of his lower ribs. Undeniably a gunshot wound giving to the torn half-circle piece of his shirt and the blood that was still gradually dribbling out. The rider came to a stop in front of the Red Star Saloon and then sluggishly came down off his horse. He next tied up his animal to the post. The young man then brushed himself off from the blowing sand that piled upon his clothing from the dusty trail. He had next pulled down his bandana from his face and began to wipe his face with his arm to remove excess dirt. You could tell in his face that he felt pain in his right side. Then the drifter subsequently walked inside the saloon. There were only 2 drinking patrons in the whole place sitting at a table playing cards. One was Cameron Wilder, a tall thin young fellow of the age of 26 with thick curly black hair and a fairly bearded face. The other was known only as Johnny Snake Eye, a half-breed, being part Cherokee, a fellow of 21 with bushy brown hair. Johnny Snake Eye was well known to stroll around, illuminating his sweaty chest with his unbuttoned short-length shirt and his roll-up sleeves as like if he was showing off of being Cherokee blood. Both of these young boys were fairly known to have bad reputation of being troublemakers, mainly the half-breed, a behavior of a hard aggressive fellow. Meanwhile the subtle young man, who had just came in the saloon, leisurely walked up to the standing bar. He seems to be troubled with difficult breathing but was able to take his complication well as if he was used to it. At the time the bartender, Bill Carlson, was occupied cleaning a few dirty drinking glasses. He heard someone approach the bar and then turn around to wait on his new customer and asked, "What will it be, stranger?" The young man spoke softly and said, "Whiskey." As the barkeeper poured the drink in his glass, the young man brought up his head and spoke again but in a snapped voice, "Leave the bottle too." The bartender began to look at his face and suddenly responded, "Oh my God, is you, Missouri Kid? I thought that they had done killed you, son." Missouri interrupted, "Keep your voice down, Bill. I don't want folks know I am around here, at least for a while. Call me by my real name." The bartender replied, "Sorry Timothy Patton, didn't mean to get too excited, but I can't help that you are still alive. This morning I had read in the papers that you and Dan Boy the Kid escaped from jail in Dead Snake. Also the law had manages to shoot your partner dead and they had planted a slug in you as well, but they say you achieved in fleeing out of town alone. They figure you didn't get very far, although the posse never claim of finding your body. The papers said the law assumed you were dead." Tim Patton responded, "Damn, news travel fast in these parts. It was just yesterday before the sun went down we broke out of jail. They got me good all right and perhaps not far from being dead, Bill." Bill Carlson tensely went on to say, "Son, you are spilling small drops of blood on the floor here." Tim Patton replied back, "Yes, seems I leaking blood again. A little whiskey will take care of that. Do you have a large towel so I can press it against my wound to stop the bleeding?" The bartender grabbed a towel from below and handed over to Tim Patton. Timothy Patton had next pour some whiskey on the towel to help sanitize the wound. He then begun pressing the towel under his shirt to his wound. He had felt the sharp pain of the whiskey but it went away shortly. After the pain settled from the whiskey, Patton went on to say, "As soon as we had escaped from our cell we took our liberty of stealing horses that were seen easily at the saloon across the street. Dan Boy and I mounted and rode nearly halfway out of town when my partner took a slug through the back. I saw the bullet come out his front chest and then saw him gradually fall from his horse into the ground where he died. With my anger I had turned and rode back a short distance to shoot the little bastard that shot and killed Dan Boy. I was sure I had dusted him and a few others that tried to get me too. That is when they sent a bullet into me, and in my condition I thought best to turn my horse around and hightail it out of town. Missouri paused for a few moments to briefly experience the throbbing pain in his side, letting it time to pass as he held the towel against his wound. Then he went on, "The bullet is still in me and I can still feel the cold slug it at various times. However, it will pass, and also I am handling the pain well, nonetheless, Bill. I don't know how much time I have left before I meet my maker." Bill responded, "You don't look that great, kid, but knowing you, you are definitely one tough fellow. Anybody that could be shot and stay alive with a bullet in him, even into the next day without much medical attention, is pushing it to the limit." Patton replied, "Come on, Bill. I've been in worse shape than this." Bill replied, "Damn it, son, you know it's dangerous for you to be here in town. Sort of doubt the law here, although as you know well enough, being corrupted as they are, would be not welcoming you home. You know, son, that Sheriff Kelly really have it in for you. Why did you come back here for?" Tim Patton replied, "It's for revenge for what they done wrong to me, and I am going to make them bastards pay." Bill responded, "Boy, I would not be messing with these men. That damn sheriff and his deputized thugs rather see you real dead. I would not be surprised if Sheriff Pat Kelly would find out that you were still alive. He and his hired deputies would be itchy to gun you down without mercy. I know you're one acclaimed gunslinger and have the notorious for being very fast, but there would be no fair contest against them thugs whom don't play equally. There will be too many of them to face. All you are doing is digging your own grave." Missouri responded, "It is just what I want them to do. Just let Sheriff Pat Kelly and his damn hoods try taking me on. I am ready to face them head on." Bill Carlson replied, "Are you serious, boy, or are you gone local in the head?" Johnny Snake Eye could not entirely hear the conversation coming from the standing bar because of the clatter of the blustery weather that was shrilly echoed against the building, but what he was able to hear he could easily identify the voice of the young drifter. He then whispered at Cameron Wilder, "You know who that fellow is standing at the bar?" Cameron, nearly unconcerned, asked, "All right, Johnny. Who is it?" Johnny Snake Eye replied, "It's the Missouri kid, you know, Timothy Patton, the deadly trigger-happy gunslinger, the former ranch hand at McCain's cattle ranch outside of town. That no-good whitewash is a wanted fugitive with a big price on his head. I must say that no-good sleazy Tim Patton have to be real dense coming back here in Devil Rock Ridge." Cameron replied, "Hey man, are you sure that really is him? I heard rumors today he and his partner, Dan Boy, were reported killed in their escape from jail." Johnny cut in, "No, it is Missouri kid. What I already envision of him is he's not far from being dead. Look at him, Cameron, the man is on his last leg. You know what that means. This is one excellent chance to collect the $5,000 reward money on his dead carcass." Cameron Wilder replied, "What are you seriously planning to do, draw against him, challenge him in a shooting duel? You know the kid is damn right fast on the trigger. He will kill you before you even have the chance to touch your irons." Johnny Snake Eye responded to Cameron's question, "I not that foolish, I planning to shoot the bastard in the back before he has the chance to turn around. The law don't care how he is killed, just along the fugitive is brought down." Johnny went on to say, "Stay seated, Cameron, let me handle this alone. I want that $5,000 reward and I planning to claim it now." Meanwhile at the standing bar, Bill Carlson, the bartender, was questioning Missouri kid. "Look, Timothy. What chance do you have with Sheriff Kelly and his hoods? They will not let you take them that easy, and if I know them well enough they'll find some roundabout way to exterminate you." Suddenly Tim Patton broke in, "Hold that thought for a few moments." Tim Patton had seen through the large barroom mirror a young man from behind him. He watched as the half-breed came up from his seat and drew his revolver towards his back. Patton quickly ducked while at the same time reaching for his iron. Johnny's bullet flew past Missouri kid, missing him completely. The Missouri kid wasted no time spinning around and firing his weapon back. Johnny Snake Eye jerked violently as dark red fluid spilled out from his lips. Missouri's bullet had made its mark and had hit solidly into Johnny's stomach. Blood gushed out like a broken dam from Johnny's wound. Snake Eye could quickly feel the torture of pain, but he manages to hold his body structure from falling. Johnny spoke out at the same time, spitting out blood from his lips, "You bastard, you shot me, you dirty rotten fool." Tim Patton replied, You piece of trash, you're nothing but a yellow gutless back shooter. Patton noticed that Johnny Snake Eye still held his weapon in his hand and was just about to raise it toward him. Tim Patton quickly responded, "Go ahead, half-breed, be a fool and draw on me." "What are you waiting for?" Johnny Snake Eye responded, "You bastard, I am going to send you straight to hell." Patton replied, "You first, you dirty half-breed." Johnny Snake Eye was no match for the Missouri Kid. The guns roared out. 2 solid slugs plugged Johnny in the bare chest between his loosely opened shirt, bursting out blood from both holes, which then dripped downwards towards his waist. Snake Eye was dead before he had a chance to aim directly at Missouri. Cameron Wilder stood there, horribly watching his partner dropped immediately straight into the floor. It seems that it was too late for Cameron's chances of trying to go for his gun. Tim Patton already instantly had his revolver pointed and cocked at him just right after he had dropped Snake Eye into the floor. Patton shouted, "If you want to keep on living, mister, you better carefully unbuckle your gun belt and toss it over here towards me, or perhaps you want to join your partner in the floor there." Redundantly, Cameron Wilder looked down at his dead partner and then looked back up at Tim Patton with a shaking of his head, saying he does not want to end up like his friend. Cameron then did as he was told and tossed his gun belt forward on the floor. The Missouri Kid next slowly picked up the holstered gun while at the same time kept his weapon pointing at Cameron Wilder. Cameron pleaded to Missouri, "Look, Missouri Kid, I have no quarrel with you, I never before caused you any trouble, it's Johnny here that detested you and caused you problems in the past, and it is his own idea he came up with of trying to kill you for the big reward money that was offered for your speedy death." Tim Patton shouted out, "Shout you mouth, Cameron. I don't care what just happened here, except I not going to be taken down by a no good for nothing piece of trash like Johnny Snake Eye. Besides, Cameron, why are you hanging around with that half-breed? We used to work together at McCain Ranch and we got along fair." Patton next asked Cameron Wilder a task to do. "I suggest you go and find Sheriff Pat Kelly and his scandalous deputies. I have a message for you to give the sheriff and his men, tell them I will be waiting for them here at the saloon. I am sure they will be so tickled to death to see me and be content to gun me down as well, but beware, I will be taking those no-good bastards with me, be sure of that, boy. Now Mr. Wilder, haul ass and get the hell out of here." Cameron Wilder nervously began stepping backwards towards the saloon, slinging doors. As he went, Cameron's legs began to slide back and forth when he had suddenly noticed his boots were standing in a pool of thick blood. It was Johnny's blood he had slid on, causing Cameron to plunge over on top of Johnny Snake Eye's dead body. As embarrassing as it seemed for Cameron, he just nervously got back up and headed straight out the slinging doors toward the sheriff office. At that juncture, along with the excitement, Tim Patton began to have his coughing spell with some verification of barfing up blood. It only lasted a few moments. He then turns himself around to the standing bar. Next, Patton placed one of his pistol down on the counter and resumed his drinking at the standing bar. It seems that the whiskey helps to soften his pain, which Tim Patton became quite addicted already. Bill Carlson, the barkeeper, apprehensively asked Patton again, "Son, you know Sheriff Kelly and his men will find a deceiving way to kill you." Timothy Patton replied, "Most likely they would get the chance of killing me, but they are going down too. At least as many I am able to take with me." Bill responded, "What do you mean?" Tim Patton replied, "Bill, today is my 22nd birthday and it's a good day to die too. Let's just say it's my birthday and my day of my death." Bill was quite mystified what Tim Patton was saying. "What are you talking about, Timothy?" Patton went on, "Oh hell, Bill. They already killed me back there in Dead Snake. I know that, and you should know that by now. I don't have much time left to live and it is too late to get any kind of medical attention. I knew that when I woke up this morning. Hell, I may be dead within an hour from now. That is why I am here. I want to go out in the splendor of a gunfight, die like a real man in the glory of a battle, which at the same time get my revenge on Sheriff Pat Kelly for what he caused me to go through. And also to do my part of getting rid of his evil men who had tried successfully of taking this town over." Tim Patton reached into his pocket and brought out a thick roll of bills. He next handed it over to the bartender and said, "Here, take this. This is some money left over that Miss Dan Boyd and I had hidden away a while back. This will pay for any damages that will occur within the next hour of much shooting confrontations. I won't need the money anymore because I'm sure that I will be dead." Bill began to ask, "How about your younger brother, Tommy Patton? He miss you a lot and talk about you all the time. Have you seen him yet? Tim Patton responded, "No, I prefer it that way. I don't want him to see me like this in my bad condition. He is a good kid and I don't want him to turn into a bad guy like me. Tommy has a good job as an apprentice for the local newspaper here." Meanwhile at the sheriff office, Sheriff Pat Kelly, a middle-aged corrupted lawman, a big Irish fellow with reddish hair, was at his desk chatting with two of his deputies. One was Justin Hill, a young man about 23. Justin was tall and had light brown hair and was one of Sheriff's top men. The other top man was Deputy Damian Zachary Myers. He was as well a large young man of 22 with lengthy blonde hair, along with a pair of powerful arms. He could knock out a person with one blow of his fist. Suddenly Cameron Wilder rushed into the doorway. Pat Kelly noticed that Cameron was fairly covered with blood and observed him as quite excited and rather nervous. Sheriff Kelly uttered, "Slow down, son. Are you hurt bad?" Cameron Wilder replied, "No, I am all right. It's not my blood, it is Johnny Snake Eyes' blood on me." Then Cameron shouted, "He's here. He's here in town at Red Star Saloon." The sheriff replied, "All right kid, spell it out, who is here?" Cameron bellowed out, "The Missouri kid, he's at the Red Star Saloon and he dropped Johnny Snake Eye dead into the floor." Johnny tried to take on Missouri by shooting him in the back, but Missouri manages to get the hint of it and he paid Johnny back by planting 3 slugs in him. Deputy Damian Zachary Myers had uttered, "What is going on here, Sheriff? Hack, I thought that the Missouri kid was dead. Wasn't he and Dan Boy shot and killed in their escape yesterday?" Sheriff Kelly replied, "Missouri was shot all right. He got away, but according to the papers I read this morning they expect he did not live, and if he was still alive I have my doubts he would make it back here." "Are you sure it was him?" Cameron Wilder quickly responded. "Sheriff, it was him all right, in the flesh. He's not far from it of being dead. The guy is a bit feeble in his condition. I saw a blood stain on his shirt near his lower side. Presumably where he was shot yesterday. I think the fellow is somewhat, like, dying. He gave me a message to give you. He wants you and your boys to show up at the saloon. I sure he wants a showdown of guns and wants to show his revenge upon you, Sheriff, and also your men." Justin Hill questioned Cameron in a humor manner, just wondering, "But how did you end up getting that half-breed's blood all over you, son?" Cameron replied, "Let's just say it was one embarrassing moment of me tripping over Johnny's body as I was in a rush of backing myself out of the saloon." Sheriff Pat Kelly and the rest of the men were laughing loudly about the response given by Cameron, and then the sheriff shortly changed his mood to a serious note. "That whitewash have the nerve to come back here in our town. Well, in a way, it's a good thing. The law is on our side this time and it's time to exterminate that bastard once and for all. Justin, round up the boys, get Clint Sickle and Tobias Leroy, tell them to show up here in front of my desk in about 15 minutes. Once they are all here we'll give them further instructions of our plans and then we will all walk over to the Red Star Saloon to carry out our strategy of execution." Sheriff Pat Kelly went on to say to Cameron Wilder, "Perhaps Cameron, you would like to join us in this event and help us slaughter this fugitive, Missouri kid and split the reward money with us?" Cameron replied, "Think not, I will sit out of this one. I really don't have any quarrel with the young man. I just came here to give you his message." The sheriff responded back, "Come on Cameron, he just killed your friend Johnny Snake Eye. Are you just going to sit back and let Missouri get away with that?" Cameron replied, "Johnny Snake Eye was not actually my friend, he's just someone I occasionally hung around with at the saloon, just a drinking partner. Did not like the fellow to begin with. Besides, he had it coming to him." The sheriff replied, "Fine son, but you know that Missouri kid and his partner, Dan Boy the kid, are Missouri born. They are cold-blooded killers. Particularly Missouri, he is a notorious gunslinger and he is deadly fast. Those 2 outlaws were arrested one night in Dead Snake at one of the saloons. Both of them got into a brawl after a heavy bout of drinking and it ended in a shooting incident which they had dusted 5 fellows. Missouri and Dan Boy were supposed to be set to hang in a few days until their escape yesterday. Dan Boy is dead, but there is a big cash reward still on Missouri's head if he's alive." Red Star Saloon, Sunday, 11 a.m. At the present time the barroom was empty except for Bill Carlson the bartender and obviously the company of a wanted fugitive of the Missouri kid, not to mention Johnny Snake Eye's corpse that was left still lying in the floor. The feeling within the saloon gave a eerie sense of sound and the odor of death, The blustery weather outside had pounded sinisterly against the walls of the building. The doors at the front entrance of the saloon were clattering back and forth, slinging wildly. Johnny Snake Eye's corpse that was on the floor brought invasion of creepy crawly bugs, buzzing upon its food chain. This followed by the gradually beginning of the rotting scent as well. Missouri was still positioned at the standing bar. He was arched over upon the counter. One of his Colt 45 was laying on the counter next to him for his quick reach if needed. His other pistol was in his holster. Suddenly Tim Patton became alarmed when he heard motion coming from behind him. He did not see anyone in the rear of him when he quickly gazed through the large mirror in front of him. Tim Patton panicked as he figured that someone was possibly trying to be sneaky enough to take a shot at him from behind. He instantly reached for his gun upon the counter and rushed around to prepare to shoot his slippery intruder, except, as soon as he turned around his fear ended at once when he saw who the agitator was. It was nothing more than one loose, mongrel old dog from the street. The animal had wandered in below the slinging door and made its way to the dead body in the floor. The large grimy mongrel was hard at it, licking the wounds and blood upon Johnny Snake Eye's bare chest and stomach. Bill, the barkeeper, was in the storage room for just a few minutes when he then came out to see what the commotion was about. Quickly the barkeeper grabbed the broom and came running towards the large dog with it. You heard me, now get out of here you stupid mutt, as what Bill had screamed. Bill took the broom and chased the mongrel out of the saloon. Then the bartender turned to Missouri, who was having the amusing benefit of watching the dog's meal on Johnny's dead corpse, and said, "That's not funny, Timothy Patton." The bartender went on to say, "That dead carcass in the floor is smelling up the place, it needs to be taken out of here." Patton responded in an insensitive manner, "The body stays to show my adversaries who are soon to be here, that I mean business. I would not worry much about this now, there will be more added bodies plummeting in the floor in the anticipated shooting event, including my own dead body I imagine." Bill was getting a bit heated, where then he uttered, "I don't want trouble here in this place and I don't want this saloon shot up into pieces. Can't you just take your damn shooting affair out in the street?" Tim Patton responded, "Have you noticed, mister, it's gusty as hell out there and the blowing dust would blind you like nothing. With my poorly condition I would not last long out there. What is your problem, Bill? I gave you more than enough cash to pay for any damage that may occur." Bill, the bartender, was scared and discomfort of having this dangerous fugitive around in his place and had feel helpless of doing nothing except just abide by his present. Bill began to gain knowledge that Timothy Patton is not that same kid he once knew but a terrifying killer and a wanted condemned criminal that is running from the law. Meanwhile back at the sheriff office. All the four boys Sheriff Pat Kelly had summoned had shown up in front of his desk. One was Tobias Leroy, a thin tall brown-haired young man of 24, known to be a blooded-thirsty killer. Next was Clint Sickle, a husky young fellow of 23 with dark tan body and brown bushy hair over his eyes. Clint was an arrogant sort with a hot dangerous rage to kill. The others as we mentioned earlier were Damian Myers, age 22, and Justin Hill, age 23, both hoodlums and sheriff's top men. The sheriff explained to the boys of what been happening in the past hour at the saloon and then gave the boys an illustration to think about. "Boys, have you ever heard the story about those lions over in Africa? When they start getting old something inside of them tells them they don't have long to live, they start roaming around looking for a fight, not just any fight but a good one they don't mind not too much of walking away from. Same purpose here with the Missouri kid, except it is not his age we are talking about, but his extreme wounded condition. Missouri wants to go out of this world in the style of a good fight? Well boys, we are going to give him a good fight all right, except, it will be swift and instant death for him." Sheriff Pat Kelly next gave his instructions to each one. "All right boys, here is how we will deal with Missouri. We all know he is deadly fast but we can outsmart him in another way. We all going to head over together to the Red Star Saloon and meet upon the boardwalk. Justin, Clint, and Tobias, I want you three boys to head in the saloon first since you young boys are my best shooters while Damian and I wait outside. I want you to engage Missouri Kid in a shooting confrontation and try to take this bastard out. Then I will follow in behind Damian at the last moment in a surprise assault to further assist you boys to finish Missouri off if needed. Remember boys, there is a $5,000 reward posted for this whitewash bastard. I will add $500 more of my own money for the one that kills him first. There is 5 of us and just one of him. I sure we can handle the job of exterminating him without having too many life taken upon us. The reward money, as we agreed upon, will be divided amongst each other, at least, for the ones that are left alive. Clint replied, I don't know, Sheriff, if I want to confront Missouri. He is mighty fast. Dan Boy and Missouri took those 5 boys out in Dead Snake. Sheriff Kelly responded, maybe Clint, but there were 2 of them, Dan Boy and Missouri is wounded badly already. We only have 1 person to kill. Are you a damn coward, or are you going to join us? Clint replied, of course I will join you, Sheriff. I just want to be sure we can take him down fast. I want him dead as much as you all do. The Red Star Saloon, Sunday, time, 11:24 a.m. At the standing bar, Tim Patton was pouring another drink from the bottle into his glass when suddenly, one fellow rushed in from the street. Patton, unsettling, grabbed his gun from the counter and rapidly revolved around to take action, where he swiftly held a young man at gunpoint. The bartender turned around as well to see what the excitement was. The young man of 19, who was a split image of Missouri Kid, except thinner, and had worn wired spectacles, had appeared in front of Missouri. He spoke. Easy bro, it's just me. Tommy. Tim Patton began to lower his weapon after seeing it was his own younger brother and said, damn it, Tommy Patton, you scare the crap out of me, hell man, I almost shot you dead. It is not safe for you to be here. Why have you come here? Tommy answered his older brother back, I heard that you were here, Timothy. I really feel that you need to leave quickly and get out of town before you get yourself killed. I saw Sheriff Pat Kelly and 4 of his men heading this way, and they most likely will be here in any moment. Tim Patton gave his reply to his younger brother, Tommy, it's already too late. I sure that my life will be taken, but I planning on taking as many of those bastards with me. My good brother, I suggest you get the hell out of here right now. I don't want you getting yourself caught up in this and get killed over me. Go home and live a long life, damn it, now get the hell out of here. Sadly and with remorse, Tommy Patton did what his brother asked him of. As he turned to head out, Timothy shouted out in tender pain, I love you brother, I will always love you. Tommy stopped short and replied, I know, bro, I know. He then continued on out the slinging doors of the saloon. As soon as his younger brother was out of sight, Tim Patton next gave the bartender a command, Bill, I suggest you leave this building now and take a stroll somewhere until this is over. Knowing something horrifying is about to happen, Bill did not hesitate at all and took off out of the saloon in a big hurry. To prepare himself for the imminent shooting confrontation, Tim Patton removed his hat and long gray coat off from himself and tossed it on top of one table. He next rolled up his sleeves about halfway and then readjusted his gun belt and holster for easy reach. Much after that, Patton positioned himself at the standing bar close to his other gun that sat on the counter. He was facing the large mirror in order to watch for his expected visitors that would soon come from behind him. He next poured another drink from the bottle into his glass and took a sip from it while waiting for his adversaries. Meanwhile, Sheriff Pat Kelly, Damian Myers, Clint Sickle, Justin Hill, and Tobias Leroy had approached the boardwalk of the saloon. The sheriff had peeped a quick stare through the window of the saloon and saw Johnny Snake Eye's corpse lying on the floor. Then observed Missouri at the standing bar. The sheriff shouted at the men so they could hear what he was saying through the strong blowing wind, Look like Missouri is the only person in the whole place, except the dead soul on the floor of the saloon, which that son of a bitch had dusted real good. Sheriff Kelly went on. Boys. This is going to be real easy to take this guy. There are 5 of us and only one whitewash bastard to take down. So like I said, let's do this like we planned. Justin Hill, Clint Sickle and Tobias Leroy, you know what to do. Get in there, plug that no good trash and get this incident over with. And if case you fail, well, it's best you don't, otherwise Damien and I will have to come in and back you up. Justin Hill next asked the sheriff, I know the fact they call this outlaw the Missouri Kid, but when I have to dress him, well, does he have a real name? The sheriff responded, yes, it's Tim Patton. At the standing bar, Tim Patton was in the progress of taking another drink from his glass when he saw through the mirror 3 young fellows coming into the saloon from behind him. As they came in, each young man had spread far apart from one another. Each took their positions as they prepare for a confrontation of guns. The men stood tall with their legs apart and their hands in close proximity of their gun holsters. On the left was Tobias Leroy. On the right was Clint Sickle, and in the center was Justin Hill, who was picked as the primary spokesman. Tim Patton, who still stood in his position at the standing bar, stared into the large mirror. Then he questioned the men from behind him, I don't see Sheriff Pat Kelly in here. Is he a yellow-belly coward that he would send you 3 boys to do his dirty work? Justin Hill, in an amusing manner, spoke for the 3 of them. I would not worry about the sheriff, Mr. Patton. I would suggest that you worry more about staying alive, if that would do you any bit of good. Justin and the others chuckled. Tim Patton responded to Justin Hill's remarks, well boys, I really not planning of seeking to stay alive. Matter of fact, today is my 22nd birthday. It's a good day for me to celebrate both my birth and my own death. However, the only difference here is that I'm not going to make it easy for any of you. You boys may take me down, but I assure you that I will be taking you damn bastards along with me, and that includes Sheriff Pat Kelly as well. You can count on it. Clint Sickle called out, yeah, we know you're fast and you may get one of us, but we are damn good shooters with a strong reputation too. Tobias Leroy responded quickly as well, look at you, mister, you're wounded and weak. It seems you have already dug your grave. What makes you think you would be able to take all of us down? Tim Patton responded, well boys, it like this, you ever seen a hurt animal that is being cornered? They become wild, irrational, and dangerous, also very unpredictable. Tobias replied, if that's so mister, then we are more determined to put down the animal swift, hard, and without mercy, and that is precisely what we will do to you. Hack. I will make sure you be the only bastard to join that corpse in the floor that you had thus eliminated earlier. Justin Hill followed in, enough talk here. Mr. Patton, it's time for action, how about turning your butt self around and start drawing your irons? Tim Patton spoke. I really excited, never had feel better, now let's just see how many of you can really dance. As those words were spoken, Tim Patton, who already has his gun from the counter in his left hand, swiftly reached for his other revolver from his holster and then with record speed, spin around towards the 3 opponents with much speed, and by this time he was already in firing mode. Everything went so fast in such a short time. Tim Patton fired repeatedly with both of his guns against the 3 adversaries. Thereafter he rolls his body over the countertop to the other side of the standing bar and ducked down in order to reload his pistols. Neither of the 3 men had not envisioned that the Missouri Kid was so quick of firing his weapons that Tobias Leroy was the first poor soul to be wasted by Missouri's bullets. The quick speedy action had planted 2 slugs into Tobias Leroy's chest, 6 inches apart, and he was dead before his body hit the floor. Justin Hill was immediately shot next and took a bullet into his chest below his left shoulder, and he went down into the floor. Clint Sickle was without more ado next to be riddled with Missouri's bullets. However, he held on a bit longer as he jerked backwards and side to side with each walloping slugs that pierced into him. Where then he finally had clash into a table behind him and went down into the floor, where he then laid dead. Meanwhile, the wounded Justin Hill crawled to the tipped-over table where Clint Sickle's body laid and took cover behind it. Tim Patton was in the process of reloading his guns below the standing bar of the other side. Justin rested a short spell in a sit-down position behind the tipped-over part of the tabletop. He took his bandana from his throat and pressed it firmly inside his shirt to his wound to stop the bleeding. Then Justin next repositioned himself carefully behind the tabletop and had hold his fire position until Missouri would come back up into his sight. Back outside of the saloon, Sheriff Kelly and Damian Myers were very concerned of how the Missouri Kid manages so well of taking his boys down. With much anger, the sheriff shouted at Damian and said, "That no good little bastard, I want that piece of trash killed, get ready to go in, when Missouri not expected. I want you to plug that bastard full of slugs until there is nothing left of him. Do you hear me?" Damian Myers replied, I heard you, boss. Although Justin is wounded and being the only one left, I would still give Justin Hill little more time. I think he is planning something, so, in spite of everything, he may still be able to take Missouri." Back inside the saloon, the wounded Justin Hill waited excruciatingly for his opportunity to fire upon his opponent. On the other side of the standing bar, Tim Patton was in his kneeling position below with his back to the counter wall. He began his readiness with his irons in both hands, pointed straight out. Patton was not sure if anyone was left alive in the room, but he was going to be cautious as he comes spinning upwards and be ready to shoot if necessary. It was fruitless to say that when Tim Patton came up, he was immediately plugged with one bullet from Justin's pistol. The slug walloped into his left shoulder arm, which had split the bone apart. It has caused him to jerk and twist backwards. The wound was so painful it had even caused him to drop his iron into the floor out of his left hand. This gave Justin Hill the time and opportunity to come up from his cover to take better shooting aim at his opponent. However, that did not stop the wounded Missouri from reacting quickly with his other gun in his right hand. Patton abruptly planted 3 slugs into Justin's trunk, including one of the slugs striking into his heart. Justin Hill immediately flew backwards, landing him on top of the already turned over table and then on top of Clint Sickles' dead body. The instant after Justin Hill was shot and killed, both Sheriff Pat Kelly and Damian Myers rushed into the slinging doors of the saloon. In their attempt they act quickly to take Missouri in a surprise ambush. The injured Patton caught the whip quickly and with the remaining iron in his right hand Tim Patton fired his shots towards his 2 opponents. The first bullet struck Sheriff Pat Kelly in the stomach. Then the second bullet went into Damian Myers' center ribs, which at the same time Damian managed to return a slug into Patton's left side of his chest. Another bullet from Patton's gun finished Damian off and had dropped him into the floor. About this time Tim Patton began staggering about with their second wound to his credit, feeling the pain and taste of death approaching him. He forced himself to turn back toward his remaining opponent and tried to fire his weapon again to finish the sheriff off. It was here when Tim Patton realized he already used up all 6 bullets and his gun was now empty. Timothy Patton stood there nearly frozen and in much pain with his chest leaking blood rapidly down his torso and his left arm soaked in blood, not counting his previous gunshot wound in his side leaking blood again as well. Sheriff Pat Kelly, although he was in much agony with a bullet in his stomach, he has manages to prize a grin on his face. Kelly had next staggered about to take a nice slow approach in aiming his weapon toward his now unarmed target. Tim Patton stood frozen and gazed at his executioner where he next spoke out with loudness and with fury, "Go ahead, Sheriff, finish me off, what the hell are you waiting for, shoot me you bastard." Sheriff Pat Kelly replied, "Shut your mouth boy, you dirty bastard, you wasted away my boys and put a slug in me, it will be a real pleasure to watch you suffer slowly before I finish you off when I fill you full of slugs." And with those words Kelly fired 1 shot into Tim Patton's belly. It was just enough for Pat to watch him feel the excruciating pain. Patton shrieked in pain as blood poured out from his gut. He raised his head back up and spoke as he spit out blood from his lips, "Finish me, do it, do it." Tim Patton wobbled about in much pain. Then after a few seconds more Sheriff Kelly fired 5 more rounds into Patton's trunk, which 2 went straight into his chest. Tim Patton's body twisted with each bullet strike, which also flew him backwards, landing him hard against the large mirror behind him. 2 or 3 of the fast-tearing slugs blasted through his body, causing flowing blood to spatter the mirror in back of him and also what slugs that came out his body that went on to shatter the glass in the mirror. Patton's body had next slid down the mirror and shelving below, leaving a trail of blood in its path going down. Yet, Sheriff Pat Kelly, badly wounded in the stomach, remained barely alive. He stumbled towards the standing bar and stared over the other side of the counter to view his kill below. He was quite pleased to see Tim Patton's corpse lying on his back in his own pool of blood in a small space between the standing bar and the shelving upon the wall. However, as Sheriff Kelly straightened himself up from the bar he heard the sound of a gun being cocked back from behind him. He turned slowly around to view the intruder. By Sheriff Kelly's surprise he saw Damian Myers barely half alive and bleeding badly, leaning upward with his left arm pressed against the counter of the table to hold him up with. Also he had a gun in his right hand, pointed straight at the sheriff. Damian shouted, "The hell with you Sheriff, you are not going to leave us behind dead and let you live." Pat Kelly realized that his gun was empty and like the Missouri kid he was in a snare, but this time it was against his own deputy who turned against him at the last moment. Damian wasted no more time and fired 1 shot into Pat Kelly's heart. The sheriff immediately fell dead into the floor. Damian Myers stared at his kill and then fell backwards into the floor where he finally gave up the ghost. At the end 7 corpses rested in the floor of the saloon, which comprised of Sheriff Pat Kelly in front of the standing bar. The Missouri kid left dead in the floor on the other side of the standing bar. On the barroom floor lies Damian Myers, Justin Hill, Tobias Leroy, Clint Sickle, and Johnny Snake Eye who was killed earlier. The newspaper article of the next day had printed, "It was Black Sunday yesterday for our community of Devil Rock Ridge when a raging gunfight took place inside the Red Star Saloon. All 7 men were cut down in death. A most wanted fugitive, formerly of this community, Timothy M. Patton, better known as the Missouri Kid, is one of reported killed in the incident. Tim Patton took on the corrupt Sheriff Pat Kelly and his men and manages efficiently to end their lives as well as his own. Those killed are Johnny Snake Eye, half Cherokee, age 21, Justin Hill, age 23, Clint Sickle, age 23, Tobias Leroy, age 24, Damian Z. Myers, age 22, Sheriff Pat Kelly, aged 54 and Timothy M. Patton, age 22. Despite the fact Tim Patton was a most wanted fugitive, he had manages to clean up our town of the corruption that Sheriff Pat Kelly and his criminal men had placed upon our community. By the following big demand, the remains of the fugitive, Missouri Kid, will be on display in an open casket at the City Hall, starting at noon. The end. Western tale written by Daniel Belay.